So, how we doing today? I know it's been a couple days. Oh, apologize. My quote: always respect Mother Nature, especially when she weighs 400 pounds and is guarding her baby. That's from James Rollins, and that's from his book Ice Hunt. So, here in Alaska, I've been talking about some of the wildlife, the snakes, frogs, um, and we have a lot of diverse, not only wildlife, but wilderness, rugged wilderness. And I think bears are probably one of the more iconic animals for Alaska. Um, there are mainly three types: the brown bear, uh, the black bear, and of course the polar bear that live in around Alaska. Each species occupies distinct habitats and exhibits unique behaviors that contribute to Alaska's rich ecological tapestry. So, so the brown bear, Ursus Arctos, a general term, refers to the species as a whole. They're found in not only across uh, North America, but Europe, Asia, and Alaska. They're known for their impressive size, powerful build, and that distinctive hump between their shoulders on their back. So, of these, there are some subspecies. So, the grizzly bear, which everybody I think fears, is actually the smallest of the three species. Um, it's Ursus Arctos horribilis. And although they are very big and formidable, like I said, they're the smaller of the group. Um, a male boar can typically weigh somewhere between 6 to 1,200 pounds. And their main habitat, they roam the forests, tundra, interior regions of Alaska. Now, its cousin, the brown bear, and mainly the coastal brown bear is what we're talking about, can be found also throughout Alaska, but they usually live, like I said, along the coast, and they're known for their massive size and impressive strength. And a lot of that has to do with their diet. I mean, it's usually rich in salmon. I know you can watch videos, and they vote on the biggest or best brown bear every year down on one of the rivers. So, but the adult males can usually stand somewhere about 10 feet tall, and typically about 5 feet across the shoulder. Now I know my father-in-law has a brown bear rug, and its head I can take and put my thumbs together, and my two index fingers just barely touch his ears. His head is massive. Um, so, um, the brown bear typically weighs somewhere between 8 and 1,400 pounds. Okay, which is a pretty good size, but you can see that they're bigger than the grizz. The females in all this species of bears are typically smaller, and the female brown bear usually will weigh somewhere between 5 and 800 pounds. Now the Kodiak bears, these are the monsters. Ursus Arctos mindendorfi. They're the giant cousin to the grizzly brown bear. And a lot of that has to do, especially to their isolated habitat on Kodiak archipelago down in southeastern Alaska. And although all three of them share similar characteristics, the Kodiak tend to be the largest of these predators. The bears are omnivorous. That means they'll feed on fish, berries, roots, and occasionally even larger prey. They all have similar diets and behaviors, but the unique, distinctive characteristics of the Kodiak Island have contributed to this huge bear. They are among the largest bears in the world, with a male weighing in at more than 1,650 pounds. That's a lot of bear. Um, and let's talk about the baby of the species, the black bears. So Ursus americanus. And they're widespread not only across North America, but also through Alaska. And we have several distinct species here in the state. in the regions, and that has to do with the environment. They inhabit forested areas in southeastern interior regions, and their fur comes in a variety of different colors, from a very deep, rich, dark jet black to a brown to a cinnamon, and even the the grayish blue bear color. So most of these bears are smaller in size, weighing in at around 150 to 400 pounds. Uh, their main diet consists of vegetation, berries, insects, fish, and sometimes even clams. They are known for their adaptability and can thrive along human settlements, though the black bears mainly try to avoid human. So the three distinct species that we have found here in Alaska and are most commonly recognized, Ursus americanus pugnax, and that's the ones found primarily down in southeast. And as you can imagine, they have a diet that's probably richer in the salmon and fish. So they're a little bit larger than most of the other black bears, and they have a robust size. And they're the ones that get the real dark, glossy black fur. The Ursus americanus emonsi, and this one's known as the glacier bear, or sometimes called the blue bear. It is rather very rare and elusive. It's a subspecies. It inhabits the southeastern coastal areas of Alaska, or mainly around Yakutat. Um, they're commonly found in remote glaciated areas, and as I said, they're distinguished by their unique silvery gray, silvery blue, or gray coats. Okay. So a very rare subspecies. And then our most common one that we find throughout Alaska, Ursus americanus alaskanus. This subspecies occupies the interior and northern parts of Alaska, and it's adapted to the boreal forests that we have here, and also to the subarctic environment, where these bears face much harsher climates. So they've developed some traits such as thicker fur and larger body size to adapt to these colder conditions. So, and even though all these black bears exhibit some physical and behavioral variations, they're influenced. A lot of that is influenced by the state's diverse geography and landscape. We have the coastal regions, the tundra, the glaciers, the mountainous region, and each one of them uh, fills a niche in these areas, with some preferring dense forest, while others thrive in the open meadows. Um, Even some of their behavior is a little bit different. Their hibernation pattern, foraging strategies, but that contributes to their survival and reproductive success. So the black bears represent a remarkable example of adaptation and diversity within a single species. Now let's talk about the granddaddy of them all, the polar bear, Ursus martimus. And sometimes it is referred to as actually a sea mammal. The Alaska natives call it Nanook. It is the mascot to our University of Alaska Fairbanks up here. Um, it's probably one of the most iconic species of bear, and represents Alaska. And It roams in the northern and western coast areas around the Arctic Ocean, some places like the Beaufort Sea, Chukchi Sea. But unlike all the other species, polar bears are highly adapted to the cold environment. They have a very thick white fur and a layer of fat that helps keep them warm. So the bears rely on sea ice for hunting. They rest on it and they breathe out on the ice. Um, their primary food source is Arctic seals, which they hunt by wading near a breathing hole in the ice. They have an excellent sense of smell, and that can help them locate prey even under thick snow and ice. So occasionally, they will you will find them scavenging, especially large, in some of our larger populations like Barrow, up around Prudhoe Bay, where they've taken over the dump sites because they're opportunistic animals. Um, the largest Alaskan polar bear on record was taken in Kotzebue back in the 60s. And this massive animal weighed in at 2,200 pounds and stood over 11 feet tall. So, so the animals live in a harsh Arctic environment, and they've even evolved some adaptations. Their large paws help them walk on the ice and snow. They are able to swim long distances. They have very keen eyesight, and as I said earlier, they can smell um, very well, and that helps them in finding food and navigating through the landscape. So, uh, but I think the polar bears are probably one of the more iconic symbols of Alaska's wild and remote Arctic. So, one of the things that's happened over the years, though, is we have some of the environments that overlap, especially with the polar bear and the grizzly. And that's led to some rare interbreeding instances. Um, the the species, as I said, in the northern part, and the resulting offspring. There's two different names: is Pisley or Growler bears, and that's that's just common tongue. I don't think they've been formally given a name. But they exhibit traits from both species in their fur color and adaptations. So these hybrid bears are uncommon, but have been observed more often with in recent years, possibly due to shifting habitat and environment. Um, Wildlife biologists have been monitoring them and to study their behavior and health and impact on local ecosystems. So it just shows you that the bears are a very hybrid, complex animal, and they've learned to adapt to the dynamics of nature and Alaska's wild country. So, so even though technically here in Alaska we only have three bear species, there's quite a diversity and size between all of these animals, and although they are incredible, they a lot of times can be very fearsome of animals. So, as James Rollins says, always respect Mother Nature, especially when she weighs 4, maybe 800 pounds and is guarding her baby. So, but as always, love you, hugs and prayers.